Split Happens, a podcast sponsored by Sasso Guerrero Henderlite, explores the emotional and legal challenges of divorce, offering insight and real-world advice to help families navigate change with clarity, compassion, and resilience.
I'm Katie Garner.
And I'm Jay Henderlite. I'm a board-certified marital and family law attorney, and this
is Split Happens. And today we're talking about a subject that is so common, and it's so unfortunate that it's so common. I know I've got, a lot of people in my life that have had to deal with this, and it breaks my heart, bit of an empath, so every time I hear about it, it just breaks my heart. But that's why we have lawyers. An attorney is here to help you. That's why they exist, because today we're talking about affairs. I've been very curious about the legal fallout of an affair. Does it actually matter in Florida if you have an affair when it comes to divorcing and getting equal assets? I don't know.
Right, and that is a very common question that I get asked. We talked about this on our first episode. Split happens really all the time. The divorce rate in this country is something like 54%. A lot of those divorces are the result of infidelity, and so people come to me because they've been cheated on, and they're really hurt and they're really upset, and they want to know, what does that look like? And really what they want to know is, what can I do to get even?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big part of it. People want to get even.
Absolutely.
They're upset. They're ticked off. I can tell you, if I got cheated on, you wouldn't find them. I'm telling you.
Anytime you've got a personal relationship, a commitment that gets violated, that's going to cause an emotional reaction. I mean, it just is. And I'm not here to judge people who are unfaithful. I get it. Not all marriages are meant to last.
Right.
People change. I understand why it happens. I'm not excusing it, and I'm not saying it was the right thing or the wrong thing. My job isn't to judge. Mm-hmm. But when people come and they're really upset, part of my job is to help them navigate the difference between being upset because their partner has violated their trust mm-hmm. and broken that commitment, and what a judge can do for you, right. What the legal system can do for you, because what people want and what they can expect or realistically achieve are often two different things.
Mm-hmm. Well, my question for you is, I think about these sweet moms and dads, but then it falls apart. Maybe let's just give an example. Dad goes on a business trip. He's gone for 2 weeks, has a little affair, mm-hmm. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Not great. But then they have kids. So how does an affair affect property division? How does the parent that did not have the affair have that security of knowing we're going to have a home or we're going to be okay?
Right, and that's kind of the big problem that a lot of people, particularly those who've been cheated on, have to deal with in mm-hmm. Florida and I think most states, although I only know about Florida, so that's all I'm going to talk about. Is that an affair doesn't have a huge impact. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is, to get divorced in Florida, the ground you have to establish is that your marriage is irreconcilably broken. And that occurs if either one of you wants to get out. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter the reason. But of course, a major reason is infidelity. It's a common reason. So if you want to get divorced and somebody has cheated on you, or in the reverse, if somebody has cheated on you, you probably want to divorce them.
Sure.
It would be difficult for me, I think, to come back from infidelity.
Oh, I'm not coming back.
I know some people are able to do it, and whatever's best for your family, I understand it. But if you're not able to repair that relationship and your marriage is irreconcilably broken, then and you want to move forward with the divorce, you're going to get a divorce that looks like really everybody else's divorce. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's really what's hard for a lot of people. That's
a hard pill
to accept,
I think, to swallow. But it's a pill, and that's why you get an attorney, because they'll help you swallow it, I would think. And so, there's a lot of emotion, I would imagine, there. So an attorney is there to take out that emotion and just to say, logistically, this is what we're going to do. You can feel what you need to feel. But I think an attorney, too, is able to help find maybe a mental health practice or something, just to help that person process their emotions. Is that part of it?
Right. So, when I say that the divorce is going to look like everybody else's divorce, mm-hmm. it just means that, infidelity in of itself isn't going to result in, the partner who was cheated on getting a disproportionate amount of the assets, or getting more alimony, or something more than they otherwise would, or what the law generally allows because they were cheated on. There are ways in which it makes a difference. It's still in several of our statutes, so it's not to say that it can't ever be used, but most of the time, at least in Florida, because it's not an uncommon basis for a divorce, it's not going to be sort of a license or give you something that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten but for the affair. So, and because that's difficult for people to understand, people come and they're really upset. I was cheated on. How could they do this to me?
Dare them.
I get it.
This is what Lifetime movies are made about.
Right.
I mean, and they don't end so well sometimes.
No.
They don't even make it to court. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying. But I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you think about, because you're right, people come in and they just, so what proof can you use in court? Digital trails, text, videos, ring cam footage. I mean, these are things I think about. Like, what can you use in court to prove an affair? Phone records, bank statements. It's a lot to get, but is that needed?
Well, it kind of gets back to, what's the goal? What's the problem you're trying to solve? If it's just you want to prove that something happened, but there's no benefit in the court case, then no, you don't really need to do all of that, because all you're going to do is just spend all your time ruminating on what you already know happened or believe happened, and that's just going to make you crazy and miserable. There, as I said, certain times it makes a difference. Usually if, one spouse is spending a bunch of money, marital money on their affair partner, well then, that's something that is worth diving into and figuring out how much was spent, where it went, and that kind of thing. But otherwise, if somebody is unfaithful and you want to find a way to move forward, you're not probably going to get the satisfaction you want strictly in divorce court.
Right.
And the reason for that is it's just not set up to settle scores. That's just not how we have structured our family law courts. At the end of the day, marriage is a contract. And it's a contract that's only really enforced when somebody breaches it. Meaning, if you're getting divorced, the contract you made on your wedding day, the happiest day of your life, where nobody thinks, oh my God, look at this beautiful contract we just signed, right?
Yeah.
No one thinks or pays attention to what that actually means if it ever has to get enforced. And so when you get divorced and when judges are effectively enforcing this contract, it's really all about, what were the assets and who gets what. Not so much who did what to whom. And that can be almost a second slap in the face sometimes to people who were cheated on, because they want to at least use this legal process. They want to go to court and they want to fight and they want to be heard. And then they're going to almost come across this secondary disappointment of being told, well, that's not really what we can do for you.
Isn't that so great to talk about, though? Because as people watch this, I think they're just so desperate for answers. I know I would be. And just to hear that. So you don't have to go back in the paper trails. You don't have to dive deep and say, oh my gosh, there's all of this that happened I didn't even know about. Maybe you find it out in your own right, but you don't have to do it as you go to court. And I think that is really, for me, if I was in that situation, it would make me take a deep breath, kind of a relief of like, I don't have to find all this. I've already been hurt. I don't have to go and find all this. So that was great. That's a great thing to know, I thought. And, another question I had is custody. How does cheating affect custody, or does it in this state?
Again, it really depends, but usually no. Just because being a bad husband or being a bad wife doesn't make you a bad parent. At least, not because if you cheat on your spouse, it doesn't make you a bad parent. And custody is all about what's best for the kids and what's the best way to promote that relationship. And there are times it can make a difference. If you cheat on somebody who's got a conviction for crimes against children, or perhaps somebody that's close to the child and it's going to have a negative effect on the particular child. But otherwise, it's not. And so, this is one of those episodes, I think, or one of these topics in family law that people find unsatisfying because, it's almost a reality check that being really upset doesn't give you, a commensurate or an argument that lets you really go to court and get something that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. And that's why I like having these conversations, because I can explain that reality, but then also say, yes, it sucks. Yes, it is an incredibly difficult thing to go through, but it's temporary.
Right.
That those emotions that you're feeling right when you find out that somebody has cheated on you, that the person you thought you knew ended up being a totally different person, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to stir you up, and it's going to cause you to have to do a lot of internal reckoning, and it feels really unfair that I didn't do the wrong thing. Yeah. I'm the victim of somebody else's bad mistakes, and now I'm the one that's got to, find a way to get over it, to deal with it, move forward, rebuild my life. But if you look at it in terms of, I've been placed in this horrible position, how could they do that to me? Well, then it's going to just seem overwhelming, and it's going to seem so hard that you're, struggling to find a way out. But if you have a different perspective on it, and your perspective is, well, person I thought, was my forever, or was my, the love of my life, turns out not to be. Mm-hmm. The life I thought I had may not have been the one meant for me. And now I've got this opportunity to find where I'm supposed to be, to find the path I'm supposed to be on, to find the person that's not going to cause me to feel this way.
I would be looking for a 90-year-old with a weak heart and a strong stock portfolio.
Yes, we know. Mm-hmm. We know.
That's what I'd be looking for. Let me ask you this, though, going back to your old life, and we've kind of touched on this, but I think just specifics are so important for this podcast. When you think about trips you've taken together, credit cards you might share together, one person spent more than the other, one person treated you to this trip, one person treated you to a new car. How does that play out? Do those things come into, hey, I didn't actually buy this, I don't want to have to pay for it, I don't want to have to finish paying for this because I didn't buy it? Does that even play into it?
Well, yeah, all that plays into how the court figures out what's a marital asset, what's a non-marital asset. But, generally speaking, anything that was acquired during the marriage with money earned during the marriage from either person, it's going to be marital. Of course, there are exceptions, but again, though, as it relates to somebody being unfaithful, it's not really going to affect a lot of that stuff. Now, if a cheating husband bought his girlfriend a Porsche, well, that's a problem.
That's a
right?
poor taste. Okay.
There are always extreme situations where these things become relevant, but to your point about should I be doing all of these things to figure out when did it start, how long it was going on? Sure, you can if you want to just continue to live in that discomfort and that anger, but it's not going to help you move forward. And if ultimately the goal should be, what's the best way for me to move forward? Mm-hmm. What's the best way for me to move from this stage of transition and uncertainty to something a lot better and better than what I had before, then no, I wouldn't spend a lot of time focusing on it. No. If it's relevant for whatever reason, then there are people for that. Private eyes, great. But I think the biggest thing that people struggle with is being unable to break free. Because you have a relationship with somebody. You want to stay in that relationship. When it goes south, there's almost like this feeling of, well, even though I'm stuck in this discontent phase, I'm discontent with the relationship, so I'm still in it in some way. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to break out of. And the only good way that I've seen people do successfully is, not to spend a bunch of time trying to find out why. Yeah,
that would hurt worse, I think. I like the advice that we talked about. Just it's over, right? So it's going to be over, and now that is a lot easier said than done. I would imagine a lot, but that's where if you let an attorney do that work for you, you can take time to heal, and that's really a good thing to talk about. Some of these affairs, though, are a little more high profile than others. When you think about that, let's say there's a high profile. Is there a way in the court system? This is just a personal question to, not for my own gain, but just to hide it, you know, to make it a little more low key. Is there ways to do that where it's not so high profile? It's not so. Some people have affairs and it makes the media. Some people have affairs and it's well known within their company. Does that have to translate into the courtroom?
Well, I think if you're the guy that was on the Coldplay kiss cam with, you know, his
That's exactly
HR
what I was
director.
getting at. That was insane. He did it to himself. He wants to sue Coldplay. We'll get into this after.
I mean, I feel like that's going to be hard to hide.
Oh.
But no, I mean, the idea is not to make national news out of the breakdown of your marriage for all the reasons why we talk about here. You know, you want to be able to move on with your life. You don't ever want to be stuck in just this one bad moment.
Right.
Because it's not good for anybody. And so, yeah, I mean, are there times it's going to come up? Of course. Is the goal, or should the goal be, to make it as big of a deal as possible, just to, you know, humiliate or embarrass the other side? You know, I don't think so. And I don't think so because I'm trying to protect them. I say that because it's not worth it for you. Because if you do that, then you're stuck with that forever. And you don't want to make a permanent choice for a, you know, temporary emotional struggle.
Well, and I want you all to know, if you have any other questions about affairs, you can ask them. That's what our podcast is for. You can comment, you can ask them. But Jay, tell everybody right here, just from an attorney standpoint, they're going to be okay if they get the right attorney. If they seek the right attorney for them, you know, emotionally and logistically, it's going to be okay. It's going to end.
Right. Well, I mean, you're going to be okay regardless. You know, you'll be okay if you choose to be okay. If you choose to move past it, if you choose to rebuild your life better than it was before, then like we said in episode 1, that's how you win.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Split Happens with myself, Katie Garner, and board-certified attorney Jay Henderlite. As always, it's such a pleasure to be with you. If you have any divorce questions that you'd like us to cover, any topics, let us know.